Pablo. Okay, how do I send this invitation? So it's what I sent yesterday, correct? Okay. I wonder if I have Pablo's number.
Cindy, where are you located?
Kandi.
Or Kandi, pardon me. Yes, sorry.
That's right. I know Cindy was supposed to be on here. I'm in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Oh, okay.
In the US.
I used to live in Winnipeg.
Oh, okay. I used to go to Winnipeg when I was going to school in Grand Forks.
Huh, huh.
It was a lot easier back then
In those days, yeah.
to cross the border.
Yeah. None of our side wants to cross to your side anymore for understandable reasons, sadly.
Yeah. Very sad. I guess that's what happens when you cheat. I still think it was a cheated election.
I don't know.
Which one?
Good point. Yeah.
I've been involved in looking at a thing on the how different are the geopolitics of today compared to other times, relatively recent times. And it's a little bit saddening and somewhat terrifying how not different they are.
Mm.
It's if you go back to the 1920s or 1930s, whether you're talking about corporate concentration or the power of individual companies or what presidents do. Like, who was the first president who tried to take over Greenland? Harry Truman, 1945.
Mm.
Woodrow Wilson took over the Virgin Islands. Guess from who? Denmark. Yeah.
We just have it out for Denmark, I guess. So.
Poor old Denmark. Yeah. All the things we think are never happened before. Trying to fix the Supreme Court, FDR, 1934.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Monica here hopping in.
Hi, Monica.
Thank y'all so much for joining us. Mark, Kandi, Pat, I'm just thrilled to bits.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. We're waiting for Pablo, and we heard that Nnimmo may be stuck in traffic.
Oh no.
But we hope he can join. Yeah, all the time zone things with daylight savings and all that just screws everybody up, unfortunately.
I was doing something I was in Spain last week, and I totally forgot that Portugal is 1 hour different than Spain.
Oh no.
Just about missed my flights and screwed up a Zoom call.
Oh, Pat, some of those are bitterer things than others, I'll say.
Yeah. Well, it's just strange if you think of the European Union as being basically one time zone.
Yeah.
And Portugal hangs on to its British connections.
Monica, you're a host on this, right?
I am indeed. Yes, Jacob.
Okay. Um, the connection is all working. I can see it on the Eventive end, so we can go live whenever. After one, there is, as usual, just a little bit of a lag. I would put it at maybe 15 seconds or so. So I think it's probably good before we start just to hold places for, 30 seconds or so.
Perfect.
Okay.
Let them know that you're here though.
And as
And-
far as relaying questions that come in through chat, Mark, are you comfortable keeping an eyeball out for chat, or is there any other way you'd prefer to handle that?
I'm just going to text Mark.
Oh, great. Okay. I figured you guys would. Okay. Well, I will be here on the back end for anything that needs doing.
Yeah. And are we going to start with the trailer?
Yeah, I mean, if you want, it would just be a matter of sharing the screen and playing it.
Okay. Is that possible on your end, or should I try to figure that out?
Yeah, I'm planning to hop off I'll hop off at the Zoom before it starts, so if someone else can do it.
That's fine. So, Mark, you should be able to share screen, or if you'd like, you can send me the link and I'll just have that open and ready to go.
Okay. I would love that if you could.
I'm very happy.
Let me see the link. Where's the link? Oh, that.
Hey, there's Pablo.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi,
Pablo.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, good
How
to
are
see you.
you? Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm good, Pablo. Great to see you. Glad you could make it.
Yeah.
Where are you, Pablo? Are you in Bolivia
I'm
or?
in La Paz,
Oh,
Yeah, great.
and we're in the middle of a big general strike in all the country with dozens of blockades in all the roads. So I'm forced to stay in my house. Well, that gives me the time to be on the call.
we're so grateful, Pablo. Thank you so much.
Let's see. No, that's.
Is the strike a general purpose strike, or is there a very specific issue?
Well, it goes from those that want to overthrow the government
Yeah.
and those that want to prevent some very strong agribusiness measures that will implicate a counter reform, a counter agrarian reform. So the fight is very important. If we lose this fight, they're going to reshape um, the distribution of land in Bolivia. If we want it, we will stop it for a while because now we have a right-wing government. But it's also possible because many sectors are asking for the resignation of the president.
Oh, that's good news. Could you spread that to the United States as well?
Yeah.
It's here. I'm just not getting out that's what's being said by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Monica, I
Yeah.
sent you the trailer by email.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I'll pull that right up.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to start out in the beginning with that trailer, especially if Nnimmo might be late or trying to jump on.
Yeah. The trick will be whether he can get signal enough in his car, but we're hoping so. Pablo, really good to see you.
Yeah. How is Mary Lou? She's here.
Oh, great.
Great. Wow. Boy, now it feels like it's been 10 years. Thank God I haven't changed a bit.
You haven't, Pat.
Yeah, right.
Mark Randazzo was saying, it's like, Pat looks great. He hasn't aged a day.
Yeah, look,
Oh, yeah.
look me. I have changed a lot. But I can go and put a hat like Mark, and
Yeah, there
then
you go.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah,
need
Mark,
a
that
hat.
that truly is your signature. That's a silhouette I know anywhere.
I know. I have several hats, but this is my dress-up hat.
Oh, a haberdasher's dream.
I love
I
hats.
also have several hats, Mark. I just don't physically wear them.
I have a really big head, so anytime I find a hat that fits me, I will buy it.
Oh, good. All right. Well, Jacob, I appreciate it. It's 1 o'clock. I've got the trailer ready. So if you want to take us live, I can always pull that, go full screen and hit it.
Yeah, let's just
start
yeah,
it.
I'm gonna hit the go live. I'll hit that in like 30 seconds. If
Okay.
you want to start the video, like at
Sharing.
10. Yeah, you can start at like 101, I think would be good.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, friends. I'm going to make myself muted.
How's Mike
I will
connect with
share
Peter?
screen, go full screen, play trailer, and then we'll throw it back to you all.
Right.
I don't know.
Excellent. All right. Good luck, all.
Thank you.
Des attaques terroristes d'une ampleur sans précédent.
The government decided to cancel everything that we were planning for. This is not okay to suppress civil society voices.
They paid for access. This is clearly the corporate capture of the cops. L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
In the end, the presidential fossil fuel will not solve climate change. It's just a small string to keep doing business as usual.
There is people power and that we can stand out to the fossil fuel industry. We need to build local living economies, continue our fights against the extractive industries.
As individual fingers, we can easily be broken, but together we make a mighty fist.
Are we live? Okay. Hello, all. My name is Mark Decena. I'm the writer, director of Not Without Us, the film that you all had the opportunity to watch over the past 2 weeks, starting on Earth Day. And it was 10 years ago that thousands of folks from the frontline communities of the climate crisis, including the 4 activists joining me today, one might be late, but joining me here today, who traveled to Paris to tell the truth, not the diplomatic version that fits inside voluntary pledges, but the real truth from the Niger Delta, the Bolivian highlands, from indigenous lands in North America, and from the streets of Paris itself. The film you just watched followed that story, and we screened the film at the DC Environmental Film Festival in 2016. So we're thrilled to be here on the other side of a decade. I don't know how that happened, but to answer the hard questions about what happened after the Paris Accords and where do we go from here. To give it credit, some things did change because of the Paris Agreement. 1.5 degrees is now in the language, which matters. But the activists were there in Paris to present the counter narrative to the successful agreement. They were not naive. They know what was proposed and what was delivered was and is a huge gap that they're living in. And we all are living in that gap, actually. But we're not here to relitigate Paris. We're here to let these 4 do what they've always done, tell the truth and hold power accountable. And then we'll get to ask them what comes next. So joining me are Kandi Mossett White, Programs Director at the Indigenous Environmental Network, who has been fighting for Indigenous communities at the front lines of extraction for nearly 2 decades, which is hard to believe since she looks like a teenager. Pablo Solon, the former Bolivian ambassador to the UN and chief climate negotiator, who warned us at COP21 that the agreement was insufficient. And he's been proven right. He's annoyingly always right. Pat Mooney, who's a co-founder of the ETC Group. Pat is a 50-year veteran of the civil society who is in Paris watching the false solutions pile up in real time. And from what you've seen in the film, you know, Pat is legally blind, but the fastest walker that we've ever had to follow. And I would dare you all to just try keeping up with him. Coming late to the panel, hopefully, will be Nnimmo Bassey, from the founder of the Health of Mother Earth Foundation in Nigeria. He's actually stuck in traffic in Lagos. And he's one of Africa's strongest voices on ecological justice and the true cost of oil extraction. And he has the best laugh in the world, which you will hopefully hear. Let's hear what they have to say. So welcome all. Not seeing everybody, but yeah, welcome. I would love to start this with just a kind of a positive note. I know that might be hard, but before we tear down the entire agreement, I'd like to ask folks in kind of a lightning round, sort of take 30 seconds or so to tell us what the Paris Agreement actually achieved in 10 years. And you can reserve the right to pass as well. But I mentioned one, that 1.5 degrees is in the official record. It's in the language. But you know, I'd love to have you all just join in and maybe start with you, Pat.
Okay, sure. Well, I have to begin by saying that I was wrong in some respects. Certainly in Paris, I felt that at the end of it all, I think I was literally in tears and felt that the ultimate conclusion was an unmitigated lie, and that we should not have supported, and it was outrageous that many of us in civil society were actually speaking in favor of it. And I have to concede that, while it definitely was an unmitigated lie, and everyone knew it was a lie at the time, the 1.5 degree image, that concept of it, has had some strength to it and has held governments more accountable than I would have thought. It's been more of a rallying point, and that's been good news. I do think that we still have a long way to go, but there other things have happened outside of Paris. I think Paris is a small part of the overall show, and the follow-up to Paris is only part of the show. But I'm a bit optimistic about where the world can go at this stage, with and without us.
Great. Kandi?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we haven't seen each other in such a long time, Pat, but you know, we had the same feelings around Paris. You know, for me too, you know, 10 years ago, my daughter was, maybe 3 years old then, and she recently said something to me where I was kind of feeling bummed out. I was feeling a little burnt out in this movement over these 10 years. Not gonna lie. I mean, there's been a lot that has gone on, right? Especially here in the US for the person who's been in the position of power for a better part of those 10 years has been very difficult. And it took the next generation, it took my daughter to say, "Hey, mom, have you Googled yourself? You're famous." And I cracked up laughing and I said, "No." And she said, "Look." And she brought up pictures of Paris and kayaking on the Seine River, right? And being with my coworkers and just all the people and the energy. Her seeing that 10 years later rejuvenated her to want to do stuff at school, to write a paper around American Indian history and why it's so important to be taught in the school system, because really a lot of this does start from our childhood and what we learn as we're little and then grow up believing our. And for me, it might be a little bit more abstract what I'm talking about, but those are outcomes that people aren't necessarily talking about in terms of what happened with all of us showing up from a grassroots perspective and still holding each other all these years later. And that is definitely a positive outcome.
That's great. Pablo. Pablo?
Well, Mark, well, I definitely agree with you. To have the 1.5 degrees Celsius in the text was an achievement. The problem is that in these 10 years, we have surpassed the 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we are already above the 1.5 degrees Celsius.
Mm.
Reality has moved even faster than what we thought, because we were thinking that we were going to achieve an increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of this decade. And now we're in the run to probably reach 2 degrees Celsius in the coming 10 years or 15 years the most. And we have to remember that in the Paris Agreement, the 1.5 was put forward because the disasters of a 2 degrees Celsius scenario were too big for so many countries. So especially small island states fought very strong to have the 1.5 degrees Celsius because that was their safety zone. But we already have surpassed it. So really, we are in a uncharted territory for humanity, and this is where we are. I'm so surprised that after 10 years, things have moved faster than what we ever thought.
Just to bring up the other side of it too, but the clean energy transition has dramatically increased. No, I mean, and not to keep it up with what is actually happening in the world, but I'm just trying to start positively at first, and then we will bring it all down. But what are your thoughts on that? Because I know that Bolivia sits on a huge reserve of lithium, and which might be, I know, is a whole other issue with colonization and people coming in and trying to take it. But it is part of this transition. And do you feel at all hopeful that that has been accelerated?
Definitely, there is a transition when it comes to clean energy from solar energy and wind power. And mainly it is in China. China is leading the technological transition. But after 10 years, we have learned also that it's not only a problem of technology.
Yeah.
The technology is there. It's cheaper than fossil fuel, but it's still not spreading as fast as we needed because the investments in fossil fuels from big transnational companies are so big that they are doing everything in order to keep and increase their investments. So we thought that by the end of 2020, we were going to see uh, the beginning of a drop of consumption of fossil fuels globally. And this has not happened even until now. Only during the COVID crisis, there was a decline. But after that, it has continued to increase. So, and the velocity of that is much higher than the increase of clean energy, sadly.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see if we can change that. Kandi, I want to ask you a question about the aftermath of the agreement. I know that Indigenous activists demanded the rights to be the Indigenous peoples and the rights of nature to be written into the Paris Agreement. And of course, as we all know from that scene with Dallas and Crystal, it only ended up in the preamble and non-binding. But 10 years later, across your local communities, Fort Berthold, what has that language meant in practice and with the communities you work with, if anything? I'm just curious what that language has done.
Yeah. There's a couple of tricky things here, you know, that you're mentioning. Clean energy, for one, is a perspective when we say clean. Because in fact, you know, I work within the Keep It in the Ground program at IEN, and lithium mines are not great here. You know, they're attacking Indigenous people's lands and displacing people still. And so there's that I wanted to talk about. And then this rights of nature conversation has become a lot bigger, but there's a lot more players talking about what does that actually mean. You know, we have something called Indigenous rights jurisprudence now that we're talking about within IEN, and um, it becomes a complicated conversation when there's misunderstanding about if something has a right, then does that give us the right then to control it, like land, for example? We have all these campaigns around land back. And I think at home here, I'm calm here in Bismarck, North Dakota, in the United States, and so the reservation is just a couple hours north of me, and I felt like I've said all the right things and did all the right things, and so now our tribal council has, like, you know, built this massive greenhouse, and they're like, yes, food sovereignty and caring for our people and taking care of the people. You know, we're going to produce 15 million pounds of food annually, and we're going to be sovereign in that way. With one caveat, the greenhouse is called Native Green Grow NG2. So they are using captured flares from the oil wells for heat and power. And it's like, what else do we do? We're in a system. We're a micro of the macro, whether we want to say it or not. And we're in this system in the US of exactly what Pablo said, wanting so badly to hold on to that fossil fuel infrastructure and industry that it forces us into positions to do something like that, right? Create a greenhouse that it's, at least we're not flaring, because, you know, the fracking is still taking place. And, you know, I feel like, geez, 10 years later, how come I haven't stopped it yet? You know, and it's constantly doing these resets, like, okay, we got this, but now we have to explain why that's not ideal either in the grand scheme of things. So from a grassroots perspective, there's many tools in the toolbox. When you talk about rights of nature, you got to start right down at the bottom all the way to the international and bring everybody along with you, which is no small feat. And that's part of the problem is people here in the US, that what I've seen, and especially at home, is there's a lot of apathy. um, this is the way things are. We can't change things. We have to work with what we have because we can't do better, when there are systems that we can think of outside of the box. And that's kind of what I've been focusing on and tackling is, well, how can we do seed saver exchanges at home with our elders on a smaller scale, so that not only an entire reservation is feeding itself, but each of our households is getting into the trade systems again. Oh, my squash turned out really good this year. Can I trade you for some of your corn seeds? And I'm not talking about these GMO things. I'm talking about traditional seeds that we have that grow better than anything that's been created on an industrial scale. So regardless of where we are, it always comes back to place and a small scale distributed system of how we use energy and how we care for ourselves, that reconnection with the land.
Right. Yeah, and we're definitely going to get to solutions toward the end of our talk or further on, but those sound amazing. And Pat, I wanted to ask you, because you were there in Paris in 2015, warning us about the false solutions, the carbon markets, climate smart agriculture, geoengineering. And now they're fully operational under the Paris Agreement. And looking at the agreement 10 years on, which of those false solutions has done the most damage to the climate action?
Well, to me, the greatest frustration, honestly, is around geoengineering. Center Group began working on that. The ETC Group began working on it literally 20 years ago this summer. And by the time we got to Paris, it was still an issue at that time where almost no one thought it was important. We kept saying, look, this is what the governments are going to do because industry is going to say we can't meet any targets. You're going to have to do this temporary fix by controlling the stratosphere and lowering temperatures artificially. And people thought we were just nuts saying that. What nonsense that we could do this. It's not unimaginable. And now it's absolutely everywhere. There's no part of any discussion around climate solutions or temporary fixes and so on that doesn't talk about geoengineering. And we knew that was going to develop if we didn't get together and stop it. And I'm just still angry and frustrated that that train keeps on moving. And industry does have a strategies, and all of the governments that said that they thought it was a terrible idea are now saying, well, I guess we don't really have any choice. We're at past 1.5 degrees centigrade, on our way to 2, as Pablo says, perhaps on our way to 3. And we'll have to go ahead and do that, geoengineering. So to me, that's the greatest threat, the greatest danger. It's the greatest geopolitical challenge to trying to control climate. And I'm just angered about it. Again, I want to put that in the context just for later on in the conversation. I'll say some positive things, but to me, that was where civil society was shouting and saying this is important, pay attention, and no one was. And now it's almost inevitable.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we're trying to go on a narrative journey here of from despair to somewhat hope. We are getting a couple questions.
I'm working
in
on
the
it.
chat. Yeah, exactly. Getting a couple questions in the chat, which I will get to, but I want to sort of end this sort of section about just sort of looking back on the agreement. I'm sorry, Nnimmo's not here, but I ask myself this all the time, and 10 years on, but what has sustained you? I mean, not the movement necessarily, you. And Kandi, you said your daughter, which is great, but what keeps you in the fight when the gap, as you all said, seems to be getting bigger, and how can we deliver amongst this? So I'll let you all answer that as long as you want, however therapeutic it is to talk about. Pat, why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, I'm sustained by history, honestly. I think that I've spent a lot of the last several years, probably at least the last 5 years, trying to convince my children and grandchildren that they shouldn't give up on the planet when they felt a complete despair. And the more I tried to find the reasons why they should not be quite so overwhelmed by everything, the more I realized that it's true that human beings have gone through many crises of a scale which is not so different from what we're seeing now, though it may not. This is going to be a longer lasting one if we lose the battle. But somehow we as humans have managed to adapt and change. Nature has managed to adapt and change. Mother Earth is remarkably resilient, and I think I have, at least, maybe not everybody, maybe Kandi and the Indigenous communities around the world have perhaps had a better understanding of this than I've had. But I'm now seeing that we have more resiliency in our natural systems than I thought. Terms like abrupt and collapse and tipping points aren't quite as immutable and immediate as we have thought. Nature is doing better than we thought, and our own human history is adapting to changes is much more successful. And other times, and I'll just end with this, at other times of crisis, what we've seen in huge crisis and around the world, what we've seen is that at moments of crisis, bad things happen. And in the end of the day, we have more egalitarian societies than we had beforehand. Civilizations don't collapse. Sometimes cities collapse, but not civilizations.
Thank you. Pablo.
Well, one thing that I want to highlight first is that if you look back to 10 years ago, we had a multilateral discussion in relation to climate change. Now we don't have that at all. We are living the collapse of the United Nations. There are no multilateral negotiations on climate change. You have the US out of the climate framework convention. You have a war going on for fossil fuels. Nobody's thinking on how to leave fossil fuels. Everybody's thinking, how do I grab more fossil fuel reserves? And I'm speaking about Europe, of course, the United States. Look what they did with Venezuela. Look what's happening in the Middle East. So 10 years ago, there was a negotiation on climate change. It didn't went well, but there was this negotiation. Today, what we have seen in COP30 in Berlin was they not even wanted to mention the word get out of fossil fuels in the text. So it is a new situation. It has changed. I would have never imagined this. So why do I keep struggling for this? Especially because I have went to work more and more with local territories. And when you work with indigenous people, local communities, they are going to be directly affected by fossil fuel extraction, mining that comes from this green energy transition, carbon markets that affect them. And they are really in the front line to seek for alternatives, to stop this new extractivism that we are living. And the reason why I cannot stop, it's because my entire life has been linked to these local struggles. So I see that maybe in the general global opinion, climate change is more and more something less important. But at local level, the impacts, the problems of natural disasters, but also of fossil fuel extraction and deforestation are increasing. And I see there a lot of initiatives and alternatives and struggles going on. And of course, that keeps us moving.
Yeah. Great. Kandi.
Yeah, I mean, definitely want to echo that. And also just, I have a 7-year-old as well, and it's like, he looks at me with the most innocent eyes and asks me questions around climate itself, like tornadoes, for example. We used to have, maybe 9 a year, and now we have like 30 plus. And it's like, why he was like, why is this happening? And asking these questions. And gee, I'm glad you do what you do. And also the community Pablo was talking about, you have folks that are just struggling every day to survive and thrive, and not even necessarily making the connection around how this international work all the way to the level of grassroots of the everyday struggling and survival is all connected, right? And so also I am so excited. I didn't get to go to Santa Marta last month, but this was a historic summit that IEN, the Indigenous Environmental Network, was able to send a few people to, including our executive director, Tom Goldtooth, which has been the first conference on transitioning away from fossil fuels. And within IEN, we've been talking about just transition for a while, Indigenous just transition specifically, but that word was just kind of a buzzword, and it felt sort of like it was stagnant until this conference where it's like moving away from these cops, which I started moving away from a bit because I was starting to get disillusioned by cops, especially after COVID, because I was like, look at how much everything went down when everybody stopped traveling in terms of carbon in the air and all these pollution things. It's like, maybe we should think about local on a much bigger thought scale around how we stay locally. But then when the meeting happened with Santa Marta, I was like, okay, this gives me renewed hope. Maybe we send 1 or 2 people that can negotiate transitioning away from fossil fuels on a large global scale, which is what we need. Because I can't just do some gardens here in Bismarck and call it a day, right? There has to be several tools in the toolbox that help all of us to make these connections, to move towards what I think the majority of people are actually saying. It's only those few in positions of power that have some sort of sociopathic tendencies or some kind of sickness about them that make really bad decisions on the behalf of others. But that's not new. That, you know, Pat had talked about historically things had happened that maybe we had forgotten about. And so in Indigenous prophecies, this time was talked about. These history, we have to know where we came from, or we will not understand where we're going. And we're in the time of, it's called like the 6th mass extinction, where things will change and will happen. Will we as humans, as Pat was saying, be smart enough to be here when that outcome happens or not? And so we're at that pivotal moment where we can choose the correct path. We're still not complete gloom and doom yet. And so it's like we're going to fight as hard as we can, as fast as we can, as much as we can, to make sure that that pathway to the good direction is still open for us. And there's a lot of people that are willing to take up that fight. You may not see it in mainstream media, but we have people fighting right now in the Black Hills, protecting the sacredness against mining and winning because of Standing Rock that happened here, because of understanding the necessity to come together and stand up and fight for the sacred, defending the sacred. We wore those red bandanas, do you remember, in Paris? And it was defend, protect, resist, and renew. We're on that trajectory. It's pulling more and more people with us, which I have seen happen, which is why I still fight. Is it really hard sometimes? Do I cry sometimes? Do I want to just throw my hands in the air and say, gosh, humans are so stupid? Yes. But then it's good. Have your moment and then go lay out in the grass if you can. Go put your feet on the ground, because you will physically feel what science always has to catch up to, which is your body realigning with what we're made up of, which is the earth, right? And so when we do that, we can recharge our batteries literally internally and move forward. And I really encourage everybody to do that, because in a growing conundrum, at least here in the US, of cement and pavement and parking lots, we have to remember to take that time to be connected with the earth itself, because she cares for us. She takes care of us only so far as we allow her to. So keep fighting and keep pushing, because again, the innocence of the children looking at us and asking these questions, it makes me emotional. I want to be able to say 200 years from now, I threw a pebble and it started out as a little tiny wave. And that, I mean, 200 years ago, let's say, we're in the future now. Maybe nobody remembers who anybody is on this panel or anybody, but that pebble created that wave that got so big that it created change. And the only way we're going to fail is if we just don't try.
And there are thousands of waves around the world. And
That is absolutely correct.
Here. Yeah, and I think since you've mentioned Santa Marta, and this has come up in questions people have been asking, is there any hope for the cops? Can they actually lead to necessary changes? I know we've sort of gotten to that already, but Pablo, I know that you went to Santa Marta in Colombia for this conference, and deliberately it's outside of the UNFCCC architecture. Can you maybe tell us about your experiences there, and do you think it's a genuine breakthrough? I mean, just in some of the language I'm hearing out of there, it's sounds incredible. The UN couldn't even see fossil fuels for 25 years, and now we've got this other conference. What's your hope for Santa Marta and the following conferences come out of that?
So to remember, why did Santa Marta happen? Because in Belen, COP30, the governments, mainly the governments that defend corporate interests, didn't want to agree on a mandate to negotiate a roadmap to get out of fossil fuels. And so a group of around 20 countries in Belen said, okay, so you don't allow us to have a negotiation on something that is so obvious. So we are going to call on a conference in Santa Marta that was led by the Colombian and the government of the Netherlands to discuss among the governments that really want to transition away from fossil fuels, what could that kind of roadmap be? So that is why they called to the first conference in Santa Marta, and there were 57 governments that came. It was mostly, the majority were governments that were already thinking how to get out. It was not a conference to negotiate a new text or a new kind of agreement. It was more a conference to share experiences, some alternatives, some possible paths to get out of fossil fuels. What is going to come out of this conference is not going to be a mandate. The commitment is to meet again next year in Tuvalu to continue this discussion. Is this very good? I think it's very good that for the first time we're discussing how to get out of fossil fuels. But there is a big but. The main polluters of the world were not in the conference. So the main ones that have to get out of fossil fuels, like the US, China, Russia, India, were not there. So how are you going to get out of fossil fuels if the main polluters are not there? That is a huge challenge. But this will allow to have a front of around 50 to 60 countries that will work in a more coordinated way in the next UNFCCC conference that's going to take place in Turkey by the end of the year. But in a context where multilateralism is in crisis. So these are the good sides of Santa Marta, but also the limits of Santa Marta. The other thing is that in parallel to the governmental summit in Santa Marta, there were a lot of civil society events. We specially hosted a conference on territories free of fossil fuels, where several experiences from Latin America, from Africa, from Asia came together to show how, in concrete terms, local communities, municipalities are struggling and achieving that their territories, their municipalities become free of fossil fuel extraction. So you had in Santa Marta two strategies. One that is more linked to the government and what they can do, and another one that is more linked to what social movements from the ground are doing in order to build at local level territories free of fossil fuels. If you ask me, it is the combination of both strategies, and especially the strategy that comes from the grassroots movement, that can lead an alternative in this transitioning away from fossil fuels.
That's great. And we are joined by Nnimmo Bassey. Welcome, Nnimmo. And hopefully you've heard Pablo was just talking about. We're talking about Santa Marta. And I know that you were there for part of it and would love to get your impressions, especially the last comment that Pablo made about the social movements really working in conjunction with government or perhaps leading the way, because I know that's a big focus for you in Nigeria. So welcome, Nnimmo.
Thank you so much, Mark, and apologies for joining late. I couldn't avoid it. Now, again, I so much appreciate what I met Pablo saying. I actually missed the conference of communities and territories free of fossil fuels. I really wanted to be part of that. And I think this was the positive part of Santa Marta, was that countries and peoples came together to freely meet to discuss the issue of phasing out, not phasing down, although I saw that in some notes, phasing down, phasing out fossil fuels. This was very significant. But again, as Pablo mentioned, it was just a space for conversations. They called it a safe space to discuss the issues. That means the Conference of Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is not really a safe space, so people don't discuss freely there. So this actually gave an alternative space. The few days I was in Santa Marta, I had meetings with colleagues from Oil Watch International Network, from Latin America, from Asia, from Africa, also from the United States, representing the Global North. And we've been calling for fossil fuels to be left in the ground for almost 3 decades, because that's the ultimate climate solution, to keep the fossils where they belong. And I'm personally getting frustrated, always going to conference of parties and hearing the debates about carbon in the atmosphere. When the carbon in the ground and the territories where carbon is being extracted, it means direct death, extermination to many in those communities. So nice for us, for people to meet and discuss these issues, but we really need to wake up the big polluters, need to get them to do what needs to be done.
Right. Just to catch you up a little bit, we were talking about the state of the movements, and Kandi brought up we cannot step out of the context of the current U.S. administration. For the second time, it's pulled out of the agreement. And I was wondering, just thinking about Naomi Klein's book, Shock Doctrine, is this a shock doctrine moment for the climate justice movements? I mean, it with all these wars going on, and it seems like the collapse of oil economies, is this a way that we can accelerate this just transition? And now I'll throw that to Kandi first.
So thank you. We have to elevate it ourselves, right? And so we're looking at, here in the US particularly, I remember talking to some people who are like, oh, I just can't wait for prices to go down. And, this was prior to number 47 actually being put in. And now people are like, geez, remember when eggs used to be the only thing that was expensive, and now it's everything, and everybody's struggling. The class gap between the rich and grassroots, just poor and money, has grown. And so I really want to give a shout out to Grassroots Global Justice Alliance and to my really good friend Cindy Weisner, who couldn't be here today because it's her birthday. Happy birthday, Cindy!
Happy birthday!
In the world you are right now. But they just had an awesome event on May Day, on May 1st, where thousands of people marched in the streets and talked about the necessity for equality. We talked about everything being expensive and the government spending nearly 1 trillion annually on war making. How the first 2 days of the US-Israel strikes on Iran alone cost $5.6 billion. And so the campaign is no war, no warming. And the campaign is care, not warfare. And people can join this care, not warfare. This is moving forward. This is happening. In fact, tomorrow, May 7th, you can join a political education webinar put together by GGJ, the Rising Majority, and Madre, three groups that are continuing this narrative forward around the demands that were made both in Santa Marta and at the UNFCCC around this connection to war and this connection to the climate crisis. Because there are several different ways that we can tackle this, as I said before. The grassroots parts are very, very necessary, but so are the getting out, the nonviolent direct action, the talking about how we can change these things with our collective muscle. And it's happening. We're not just sitting around like crying about how the state of the world is. We're taking action, and we want more and more people to come along with us. And so I think at the end or in the question and answer section, we can drop links and URLs to like, how do you join the fight if you weren't aware of what these fights were before? Because people matter, people power, in the context of goodness and peace throughout the world as humanity matters. The fact that we've been losing so many people because of these wars, people don't even want to talk about Palestine. It was like a trigger word here in the US. And seeing these images of these babies coming out of there, this is all real. This is happening. And it's up to us to say, no, this is not okay, and to join forces to stop those kind of things. And I know I kind of veered, but those are some of the demands that are being made within Grassroots Global Justice Alliance, which I'm the current president of, and other organizations, like I said, Madre and Rising Majority, coming together to make our voices heard.
Yeah. Nnimmo, thank you, Kandi. Nnimmo, you in the film, you distinctly call out the loss and damage funds proposed as being a paltry sum compared to military adventures of what nations are spending. I wonder, is this the moment to call out the insanity and uplift the solutions? And I would love, we'll hopefully move into solutions on the local levels. I know you all have examples of that, but to stay on this theme that Kandi brought up of no war, no warming. Can you speak to that?
Really, it's amazing how easy it is for government to spend so much on warfare, on destruction, at a time when the world should spend investing in development. And I think as at last year, up to about $3 trillion was spent on armaments and warfare. It just makes nonsense of all the liturgy that relates to finding funds for loss and damage. Loss and damage really to me means that the COP itself is lost and damaged unless the policymakers wake up, to do what needs to be done. And so the issue has always been that it's not a lack of money; it's a lack of decision, a lack of understanding that fossil fuels are not renewable, and therefore they're going to get exhausted. And then to link fossil extraction with militarism, the link is so direct that we can see clearly what is going on in the Middle East at the moment. And the Strait of Hormuz is really giving us very straight message that, look, we got to a point where everything is so constricted that getting out simply means to invest in renewable energy, invest in alternative energy, listen to the grassroots and see the lessons that we can learn and how things can change, and just not keep on digging a hole, digging for more oil, for more coal, for more gas, and creating more destruction in the world today. It's truly amazing how the world is going this direction. From what is going in the US, some people call it Trumpismo. I think that's a very nice way to describe what's going on. Total lack of direction, lack of lack of what I said. No, there's no certainty about it. It's like every day you wake up, there are new spanners being thrown into the works. So really, the funds that's being used in armament, in warfare, have to be redirected, and that means changing the political system. And so we may have to just globally begin to organize in a way that would help to redirect the thinking and get away from the direction that the world is currently going. That means more destruction and more, maybe that is calculated as progress, but clearly destruction cannot be progress. And we need alternative. We need to keep the fossils in the ground and Instead of going to work to build bombs and build expensive warships and aircraft carriers, they should be spent in renewable energy and in making life better for people around the world.
Agreed. Pat, I want to sort of, ask you, is this the shock doctrine moment for what you've been arguing for 50 years, that the answers are within community, within farmers' fields and indigenous knowledge systems? Is this our moment?
It is, I think, quite honestly, and it's our moment in several levels. It's definitely at the community level. Well, that doctrine has been understood and being practiced, I think, now for quite some time, and building very strongly. What I find most encouraging, really, at the community level is I was in Spain during Earth Day, and I was part of a march then, which I thought was wonderful because it brought a lot of folks together who were from a wide range of concerns, who all cooperated together. Those who were concerned about poverty and housing in Spain, those who are concerned about support for migration and treatment of migrants in Spain, those who are dealing with Palestine, Ukraine, the whole range of issues, including, of course, Earth itself and climate. We're all there together, cooperating together, recognizing all their commonalities, though we're concerned about health issues and unemployment in Spain. We're there. And they could all cooperate together. And that's what we were missing before, I think, and now which we have stronger than ever, which is recognizing that our movement isn't just a peace movement or just a climate movement, is a movement for social justice that at the community level has to bring all of these groups together to cooperate together. And that's starting to happen and is absolutely critical. It's a vital change that's time has come. Also, though, Pablo may disagree with me on this. I think that this time of crisis for the multilateral system, for the United Nations, is also an opportunity. There's a shock doctrine there. The absence of the United States in 31 different UN agencies in the last year has in many ways been a plus. There are many things that can be done now that couldn't have been done before. And there have been many times I've been involved in negotiations around seed treaties and things like that in the past, where our hope was the United States would not join the treaty, would stay out of the treaty so we could make progress outside of the United States. And then the United States might join sometime down the road where they're kind of trapped into a more progressive structure than otherwise. And now we have a chance for the first time since 1945 to restructure the United Nations, to get rid of, I think, some of the aspects of the veto in the Security Council, to make peace a real function in the United Nations and make changes that couldn't be done otherwise. And that is something we have to take advantage of. It takes planning and organizing, but that opportunity is there now. We talk about the loss of funds to the United Nations because of the US pulling out. Well, it's about a 25% loss. But if you look at actually some of the creations of problems because of US funding in the United Nations, it's about a 40% budget cost. So we could actually save money by the US being out and getting others to work together more closely. That's a big job, I know. It's a complicated job. But I think the multilateral system has a chance to be revitalized in a way it never has been before. So at that level, at the community level, in all the in-between areas in which we're cooperating now around the world and different strategies around whether it's oil or digital technologies are all there for us to work on together. And I'm optimistic about those possibilities.
Great. And Pablo, I'm going to have you answer that as well, but also incorporate a question from the audience. Are you seeing any examples, for better or worse, of next generations picking up this baton and keeping the fight going? Especially curious to hear about Pablo's experiences in Bolivia.
Well, I think that I agree that the climate movement now has to be a movement for peace. There is no possibility to have a climate solution if there is no peace. So this is key. Your next movie has to be about the huge mobilizations in the US against your king and against war, because I think the US, when it comes to civil society mobilization, is really taking the lead. I don't see any other country in the world with massive mobilizations of more than 1, 2, 3 million people on the streets. And to be against the war is to be for a climate justice solution, because with the war and with these neo-fascist governments, there is no solution, no? I agree with Pat that we have to think on a new kind of multilateralism. And a crisis is an opportunity, I agree. It's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. And we have to put forward a proposal that for a multilateralism organization, from a new kind of UN organization that is first doesn't have a Security Council, but also that it's not only based on governments, on states, because I think this is the mistake. If it's only based on governments, the governments only think on their next election. So we need to have some kind of representation in a new kind of multilateral system where you have governments, but also you have civil society with voting power going to these negotiations. And also we need to think of a multilateralism where we have nature as part of the negotiation, because nature is always the forgotten other actor in climate change negotiations. So I think we need to think bold when we think of reshaping what is multilateralism. And this is key. And finally, I think that 10 years later, I come to the conclusion that the problem is much bigger. We have to focus on system change. Really, the problem is not of fossil fuels in itself. It's a capitalist system that seeks to make money with whatever they can. And that can be fossil fuels, but that can also be green energy. We have more and more conflicts around green energy, clean energy in different countries, and carbon markets and so on. So I think we have to, that slogan of 10 years, 15 years ago of not climate change, system change is still key to really find a way out of this situation.
Totally agree. Thank you for giving me an idea for the next film. One thing I do want to throw out, we're coming to close. We can extend if we need to, but I'll close with this question for all of you. This film is called Not Without Us. Thank you all for being a part of that. But today, with the political ground shifting insanely under all of us, I want to ask what that phrase means now. Not without us. Who is the us that needs to be centered in the next 10 years of climate action? Is it youth? And what is the one concrete specific thing that people who watch the film can actually do to be a part of it? I will throw it to Nnimmo.
You're very kind. Yeah, I think 10 years after Not Without Us is still the title is, and the demand is still very relevant. Not without, we have to be the ones. When I say we, I mean every being, not just human beings, every being on planet Earth. No being must be left behind. It sounds like a cliche, but that's the absolute truth, that everyone must be engaged in the struggle to forge the new pathways. And I think when we come together that way, we can actually imagine a future that is different from what we can see right now. We have to see beyond the future that we can see right now and actually begin to construct the pathways to that future that's beyond the immediate future that the present system is presenting to us. One of the things I just came off a meeting, a workshop on basic advocacy, and I found that people sometimes think they don't have the power, that the power is with the politicians, that the power is with the corporations. But if the people actually stand together, as the slogan says, the people united can never be defeated. The people stand together, the crime scenes can be sanitized. And I think this is going to be the creative, imaginative way forward to change the. I will have to use all the tools, all cultural tools, use movies, documentaries, poetry, drama. We have to just find a way to change our imagination from that of powerlessness to that of actual power being with the people, belonging to the people, and being controlled by the people.
Great. Pat.
Yeah, I'm thinking not without us is not just for the youth. I'm not planning to quit. No one gets off light on this, and no one has the right to quit. None of us. And you keep saying, you mentioned that I've been doing this for 50 years. That was 10 years ago. It's been 60 years now, and I have no plans of going away. And I absolutely give first priority to the youth, and the more that they'll have a bigger and bigger role in all this. But we've all got our jobs to do. And the old slogan, Nnimmo just mentioned it again about the people united will never be defeated. I want to change that. The people in their diversity will never be defeated. It is the diversity of us functioning together in all of our different ways across all of our interests and so on towards common goals that can't be defeated. And I am very optimistic about that possibility and how that is changing now, and the opportunities that have been created for us because of the calamity of guess who's number 47 in the United States. We have those chances. And I think we need to take advantage of them. We're at a critical moment, and I think we can rise to the occasion, and all of us can do it together.
Right. Mr. Solon.
No, it's difficult to add. I agree totally with Nnimmo and Pat. Maybe not without us do not take decisions without taking us. But I think now it's the time to say we have to take the decisions because they are not taking them. So we have to take the lead. And when we take the lead, we have to think not only on us, also on future generations, but also on Mother Earth. I think when we speak about us and what we do, we have to see that in our hands is also not the future of humanity, but also the future of nature. And I think that is the greatest challenge that we have as humanity.
You're here. Kandi.
Yes. Echoing what everybody else said, not without us is a big picture. I want to ground people in what's happening right now. So within that framework, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the next thing they're trying to do is have offsets within jaguars and within whales, and like taking animals and then desecrating more of the sacred. And so there's that. It almost blows your mind how crazy it is. And so we have to keep up with the lingo and the language for that next generation so that we're not lost on how things constantly change in the regime of wanting to keep things being the same. I think that people fear change in general. It's hard to accept change. And so taking along the people that are scared of that change, we can't just completely separate ourselves. We have to also bring along them, the ones making the wrong decisions. And I think I'm going to go back to how that starts with education. Let me throw a little stat at you here. Here in North Dakota, in the United States, where I'm calling in from, we just passed a Senate bill in 2021 that mandated that schools would have to incorporate Native American history and culture into their classrooms in 2021, right? And so there's a whole plethora of knowledge, traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, connections to what that means when Pablo keeps saying nature. it has to absolutely be all those that cannot speak for themselves as well. The four-legged, the winged, all of those in the waters, and the babies that have yet to come that don't have a voice yet but will be directly impacted. And so I love how Pat was like, I'm in it for the, I've been doing it for 60 years because there is a very real thing where it's hard to stay engaged when it feels like the David versus Goliath story. But then somebody said the other day, yeah, but you know how that story ended, right? So it is possible. And, put it into another context for those of you that might be watching with kids out there. My kids and I, we watched A Bug's Life the other day. And, there's a lot of context there around, hey, I might just be one little individual and I might feel like, help, I'm lost when I lose the path. But when we all wrangle together, we can defeat those grasshoppers, those bullies, those ones that maybe weren't raised up correctly. And having an inherent belief that everybody is born with some goodness in them and has the ability to see things in an objective way. I trust me, I'm saying this while I'm also like gritting my teeth because I'm dealing with a president here in the US that I just, is awful. But still, the worst thing any of these corporations, companies, bad players can do is make us be like them. So I challenge everybody to step away from that. And when we say us, it is collective. Us as humanity, us as plants, animals, all life, not without us, because we are collectively in this together, whether we like it or not, whether we recognize it or not. And from the babies to the old ones, I'm with Pat, Pablo, and Nnimmo. I'm in it for the long run. And honestly, I wanted to just say I'm really, really humbled to be a part of this really powerful panel. Your minds are brilliant. And it's people like you that have kept people like me going, because if you're still here, then I can still be here and I can be here for my kids. And so can anybody watching this. There are things that we can do. And we all have a skill set like Mark. He can make those videos, he can create awareness. I can talk. I used to get into trouble for it in school, but I can do that and use my voice. And we're calling, I don't know if everyone's aware, but we're all over the world right now. Pablo's over there in La Paz, and Pat, I think, over in France there, and Nnimmo's in Nigeria. Like, Mark's over there in California. We're just all over and we're still communicating. Now, technology, I want to say a quick note because I would be remiss if I didn't say this. Let's us keep up, and let's us not let that technology become greater than our own minds. Because right now we're dealing with AI data centers as well and things that are threatening to take over us, like our mindset. And we should be very careful about that. And we should be using our minds and telling our future generations to use our minds and to get our hands dirty and get in the earth. Feel the soil, plant a seed. Because when you physically plant a seed, you can then go forth and mentally plant seeds. And those can grow like wild. And it will create really beautiful future hope when people do get stuck in that apathy, because it is hard and all of this will be hard, but we're not alone. Just like when you sprinkle some wild seeds out in the fields, well, that's what I do. You come back the next season and you've got all these beautiful wildflowers there by one simple act. And if we collectively do those one simple act, it'll be really big and it'll be felt and heard around the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. I'm addressing a little bit of a question in the chat, but I'm not giving up either. I was inspired from this film to do another film. Specifically, Pat Mooney was really instrumental in a film focused on regenerative agriculture and Afro-Indigenous farming techniques. That was a film called Farming While Black, which the DC Environmental Film Festival also screened. And possibly the next film is going to be about Indigenous knowledge. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, to educate and inspire, this panel was amazing. You are all amazing. Kandi just wrapped it up perfectly. I been so inspired hearing all of you. I do want to say we will put links that any of the panelists would want to have up either in a follow-up email. I'll talk to DC Environmental Film Festival. Perhaps we can also update the Not Without Us movie website to put links that are more current for today. But yeah, I also want to just give a huge shout out to the DC Environmental Film Festival for hosting us here and spreading the word. And they are an amazing organization that I'm just proud to be a part of. So thank you all. And we will see you again, hopefully in person within the next few years or so. Not going to be another 10. Thank you all to the audience as well for attending and sending such great questions. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Take good care, everybody. Nice to see you folks again.
Yeah, same here.
Are
Same
we
here.
gonna end with that trailer again?
With the sound.
With the sound this time?
I got it ready.
Let's go.
Okay.
Here we go. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
COP21 is kicked off with unprecedented momentum and heightened pressure from a diverse chorus of voices.
Instead of lowering emissions here, we're going here. Are we moving forwards or backwards?
It's highly important that social movements, communities that are often first and worst hit, be able to articulate what should be happening instead.
The next 10 years are fundamentally critical if we want to keep the 2-degree door open.
Here we are talking about global warming without talking about stopping the dependence on fossil fuels. This is hypocrisy at best.
You can see, oh yeah.
That is one of their drums. Yeah, of course.
They're going to have their negotiations inside. We're going to have our mass action on the outside.
Des attaques terroristes d'une ampleur sans précédent.
The government decided to cancel everything that we were planning for. This is not okay to suppress civil society voices.
They paid for access. This is clearly the corporate capture of the COP.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
An agreement that doesn't mention fossil fuels will not solve climate change. It's just a smokescreen to keep doing business as usual.
It's up to all of us to keep fossil fuels in the ground and stop climate crimes now.
The fate of the world is in the balance.
There is people power and that it can stand up to the fossil fuel industry. We need to build local living economies, continue our fights against the extractive industries.
As individual fingers, we can easily be broken, but together we make a mighty fist.
Awesome. Thank you all.